Ladies and gentlemen, we begin our awards ceremony today by recognising exceptional achievement through the conferment of our university's highest award, our Honorary Doctorate. The award today is to be conferred to Sir Kenneth Olisa in recognition of his outstanding contribution to business, diversity in business, and the non-profit sector. I now invite Sir Kenneth to stand whilst our chairman, David Edmonds, introduces him to you.
Thank you, Martin. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. There's a biography of Ken, or Sir Kenneth, in your programme, so I won't go through all of that. I just wanted to make a couple of remarks, though, if I could, about what Kingston is about. The governors, we sort of run the university. We're advised by Martin, the faculty. We set the strategy, we set the budgets, we try and make sure that we run the thing wisely and sensibly. But there's more to Kingston, I think, than running a university business. Kingston has, to my mind, certain fantastic and memorable characteristics. We're a university about giving opportunity to people who may not have had it before. Many of you know, particularly those of you who are graduating today, that about half of our undergraduates and graduates come from a black minority ethnic background. About half of our undergraduates come from a background where there's no previous experience of university education. Many of our undergraduates come from a background where there has been difficulty. We have a Head Start scheme that gives special help. Many of you know that we worked incredibly hard on bridging the attainment gap of students who come into the university who wouldn't do as well without that extra help. All of that's relevant in the context of Sir Kenneth Olisa. He, as you see, he has many adjectives have been used to describe him. He says the 90th adjective that's used about him is he's a black man. He came from a family where he was brought up by a single mother. He went out and he founded his own, it's not exactly a venture, a merchant bank that invested in small and other businesses, not the kind of merchant bank that goes in, puts a ton of money in and then sells on 5 years on. Ken and his colleagues actually worked with the companies they were involved with to make them successful, to make them profitable, and to give opportunities to many others. But Ken's not just done that. I first met him in a previous part of my life. I was chair of an organisation called Crisis, that looked after single homeless people. Ken ran a major housing association also dealing with homeless called Thamesreach. The recognition he's received for his efforts in that area is well and absolutely deserved. So you are looking at someone today, you're going to listen to someone today who I hope is a model of what Kingston in its own way is about. It's about opportunity, it's about diversity, it's about attainment, and actually, hopefully, it's about giving a hand to others when they need it. I have a formal bit here which says, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, I have the honour to present Sir Kenneth Olisa to you for the conferment of the degree of Doctor of the University Honoris Causa. I give you Ken Olisa.
Sir Kenneth, by the authority vested in me as Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Kingston University, it is with the greatest of pleasure I confer upon you our highest degree, the degree of Doctor of the University Honoris Causa, in recognition of your outstanding contribution to business, diversity in business, and the non-profit sector. Sir, my congratulations to you.
Thank you. I thought that's a rather bad plan.
Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you again for so much for coming. It's enormous.
I guess I'm going to be drawn into the orbit and have to do more.
I'll take this for you, sir, if you want to speak. And you've got some.
Thank you. Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Chairman, Dean, ladies and gentlemen, and as everyone else has said this morning, graduates, it's wonderful to be here. It's a great honour. unlike the graduates here today, I've done no work for this particular degree, and there's a lesson there for you, I think, about the rest of your lives, that some things are easier to come by than others. But like the preceding speakers, I congratulate you on what is a wonderful day, and the families and friends, well done for supporting them through this really important journey that you've been on. I wanted to start my remarks by picking up on the Dean's stories about people chasing each other, lions, gazelles. Hopefully you were able to follow those stories. They got a bit complicated, I felt, in the middle. I have a version of the same story, which I remember from my days when I was in IBM. In IBM, I was a systems engineer, which is someone who writes programs, designs systems, writes programs, installs them. Really hard work, 12-hour days, working overnight in computer rooms, etc., etc. I do need sympathy for this story, but wait for me for a second because I'll explain why. And the alternative job was to be a salesman. And the salesman was the person, salesperson, was the person who had sold the system that I had designed and then had to write and then had to install. And he, because it was nearly always a he, but he had a particular salesman I have in mind in the story, had a Stag, which is a very, very important car when he wasn't driving his E-Type Jaguar. And I, on the other hand, took the train to work. So you get the general idea of the distinction between the two classes of people inside IBM. And there was a great story which we systems engineers used to tell each other, which follows on from the Dean's theme, which is a salesman and a systems engineer went out bear hunting in the woods. And they failed day in and day out to find any bears. And then one night, the systems engineer was inside their hut, and he was cooking dinner for the two of them, because that was, of course, the role of the systems engineer, while the salesman stood outside smoking, which was the job of the salesman, to wait for his dinner to be cooked, when the salesman saw a bear approaching towards him through the woods. And so the salesman panicked, so as the bear began to attack him, he stepped to one side and opened the door of the hut, and the bear ran into the hut. The salesman slams the door shut behind, leaving the bear and the systems engineer trapped inside the hut, and then the salesman shouted through the window, "I've caught it, you skin it." Now, I tell that story, A, because it allows me to do a rather cheap way into the points that I wanted to make this morning, but the two stories that the Dean told are about division between people, about competition between individuals. And as the chairman has said, I actually want to address something slightly different, which is to do with cooperation between people. I was described as someone committed to social inclusion, and I am. And by social inclusion, I think that everybody who has merit should be given an opportunity to exercise that merit for the common good. If you're a business graduate, and you all are, the graduates today in this sea of blue, I would argue you've never had it as good as it is today. Now, you won't probably feel that because it's just you're coming over the shock of having passed your exams and all the other things that go with it, and probably seeing some of the ladies in their shoes, the shock of getting the shoes on, never mind anything else more difficult today. But in terms of business and the opportunity to be a business person, and particularly an entrepreneurial business person, and so Kingston's achievement as being the #1 entrepreneurial business school is a very, very important part of what I want to say. The opportunities for entrepreneurialism have never, ever, in the history of mankind, been greater. And why do I say that? I say that because in the old days, if you wanted to start a business, you needed to raise an enormous amount of money, tens of millions of pounds, to get something started. And you needed to spend a lot of time building that business. You think about the great businesses that exist today, the GlaxoSmithKlines, the Rolls-Royces and so on. It took decades for those businesses to get into their stride, huge amounts of capital. Today, with the advent of ubiquitous, low-cost technology, it is possible to start a business with very small amounts of capital, but a very good idea, and to turn that into something real on an iPhone, on a computer, on a web, in the cloud, whatever it happens to be. So the barriers to entry as an entrepreneur have never been as low as they are today. The volume of capital available to entrepreneurs has never been as high as it is today. So two very propitious forces for you as you step out on your next step in your careers, and for those of you who are going to entrepreneurial activities. What makes it particularly exciting, though, is that the incumbents, the people, the companies that have ruled the roost in all of your lifetimes, are struggling to take advantage of what I call the age of disruption. They're struggling to work out how to deploy technology. Look at what Amazon has done to the retail industry, or Airbnb has done to the lodging industry, or Uber has done to the taxi industry, the ground transportation industry. The age of disruption is running across the planet, and with it come enormous opportunities. Yes, there are negatives for people that work for traditional high street retailers, etc., and those companies will need to catch up. But they will catch up because they catch the entrepreneurial spirit, which is what you've learned here in Kingston. So in the age of disruption, whether you're an entrepreneur wanting to start your own business, or you're going to work for a large established business that needs help to not become a disruptee, the opportunities have never been greater. So rather than our lions and our gazelles, I would divide the world into disruptors and disruptees. And the most important thing to know, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, is which one you're working for, and to make sure that if you're working for a disruptee, you somehow turn the energy to your advantage, the energy of technology and so on, and help it to become a disruptor. Because that's how humanity advances, that's how creativity advances. And you've got the foundation here from the greatest business school in the UK to be able to take that to the next stage. But, and it's a very large but, with opportunity, the opportunity to create wealth for yourselves and wealth for other people comes, I would argue, as an extremely strong responsibility. And that responsibility is to everybody else. There is an image about business that you hear when you read the newspapers and listen to the radio and read social media in this country, that somehow business is bad and evil. Well, if we don't have business, there is no wealth creation. So there is no welfare state, there are no police, there's no social housing. We have to have business to create wealth. Some business is indeed evil and needs to be dealt with, but some people are evil and they need to be dealt with. But business per se is not. And we have a task, those of us who are involved in business, to make sure that the world understands the good things that business does, not the bad things. And the best way we can do that is by showing our love for our fellow man, which was the message that came from the preceding speakers. And as has been said, I have been recognized both here at Kingston and in my knighthood for services to business and philanthropy, the two sides of a coin, fundamentally important message to you as you're about to embark on your own business and entrepreneurial careers. The vision of Kingston University, as I'm sure you will all remember from when you were reading the websites and deciding which university to go to, is that Kingston students will be sought after for their academic achievement, that's what you're being recognized for today, and their ability to shape society and to contribute to the economy. Those are not hollow words. Those are fundamentally important rules and principles that you must follow as Kingston graduates. So I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Oh, grown, you thought this was all over now and you could go off and get a job and earn some money, and I hope you will do that. But here's a homework assignment. One of the advantages of being a knight of the realm is that I am honoured to have my own coat of arms. Now, everybody in this audience who's ever been a small boy or a small girl and been a prince or a princess will at some point have created your own coat of arms, but there is an official way of having a coat of arms. And when you create a coat of arms, you do two things. You create a wonderful graphic that captures everything you ever want to think about yourself. It's the ultimate vanity project. It's much more exciting than having a tattoo, for example, because it'll be there in perpetuity. But at the bottom of every crest, every coat of arms, is a motto. And a motto should encapsulate that your message, your brand, your personality, your communication to everybody else for all time. Your homework assignment, graduands, is to think what your motto should be. It needs to be short, it needs to be in a language which everybody can understand because it's a communication activity, and it needs to capture everything that you stand for. Ladies and gentlemen, mine is do well, do good, and I commend it to you. Thank you very much.